It is 8 minutes after 8 o'clock, and Helen Stapleton's here with us. Common Sense Matters. Good morning, Helen.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fine.
So our show is going to be every fourth Friday of the month from now on. It was on the fourth Thursday of the month, but now we've moved to Friday. And I didn't realize that you did the pledge with the kids every single morning. I thought it was only on Thursday mornings.
Every day.
Every day. Okay, that's cool. I loved I love their jokes. That's the best part. And I was excited to hear about y'all's bingo thing. I love bingo.
It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and I want a chest freezer because at Swanee right now they're having where they kill a deer and you can sign up to get a whole deer. And so, you need a chest freezer for an entire deer. Oh, gosh. We did it a few years ago and, we got it dressed, but we had to package it all up, and that was a lot of work. If I do it again, I'm going to tell them to package it all up too, because that was way too much work. Okay, so today we have two guests. They're both running in the November 8th election. So the first is Jason Martin, Dr. Jason Martin, and he is running to be our next governor. And the other one is Wayne Steele, and he is running for U.S. Congress, 4th District, so Scott Desjardins' seat. So they are both going to be calling in. First, we're going to talk to Jason Martin, and then Wayne Steele. So I just wanted to make a few announcements that October 11th is the last day that you can register to vote in this upcoming election. So make sure that you go to govote.tn and register to vote online, or you can just go by the Election Commission office, which is in the Annex building, the Franklin County Annex building, on 893 Dinah Shore Boulevard, and you can just register in person. Those ladies are very efficient, very helpful, very nice. They'll get you registered, so you can do it online or in person, but try and get that done by October 11th, especially if you've moved recently or whatever. Our monthly meetings, the Franklin County Democratic Party has its monthly meetings every third Thursday of the month. So our next one is going to be on October 20th at 6 p.m., also at the Franklin County Annex building in the small meeting room, which is right next door to the Election Commission office. So remember that. I want to thank everybody who came by our booth at the Cowan Fall Heritage Festival. We met so many people. We registered voters. We also had a sweepstakes where people could buy tickets for a 1-year membership to the Tennessee Aquarium in Chattanooga. Haley Hill won that, and she is going to gift it to her sister who has young kids, and that was really, really sweet of her to do that. And they will have unlimited free visits to the aquarium in Chattanooga.
You got your caller?
Okay, one sec. I just have a few more announcements before we talk with him. Also, in the November 8th election, there are a couple of ballot amendments that are going to be on there. So we are hoping that everyone will vote no on one, which is putting right to work in our Constitution. It's already the law, so it's sort of redundant. And then yes on 3. So no on 1 and yes on 3. So let's now hear from Jason Martin. He is on the phone right now.
Hey, good morning. How are you all?
We're fine. Good to hear from you. Are you on the road right now?
We did 2,500 miles this week, and I am at my house.
Okay.
Having a cup of coffee, and we're going to be working from Middle Tennessee today, so I'm glad to be home.
Right. So you're a doctor. I imagine you're having to take a leave of absence from your work as a doctor, huh?
So when I work, we work shift work, and we work 24 hours at a time, and I usually do 10 of those a month. That's considered full-time. I'm working about 3 a month right now because, a lot of what I do is with my hands, and I have to use it or I lose it. So I am working a little bit still, but my work partners have been amazing.
Okay. Which hospital are you at?
Yeah, so I work at 2 different hospitals in Sumner County, Hendersonville Medical Center, and then Sumner Regional up in Gallatin.
Okay, and so 24-hour shifts, so that's doing ER?
So it's called ICU medicine, so intensive care unit medicine. So we take care of the only people in the hospital, the sickest people in the building. So ventilators, medicine to keep your blood pressure up, complicated post-surgical care, that sort of thing. We manage, and yeah, I mean, we have help at night. So for the most part, we're there, 12 hours or so during the day, and then we're available to come in at night. So it's a great job. It's fulfilling, and I love doing it.
You literally save lives every day, I imagine.
Well, we do our best. I mean, we do our best. We've got a great team that we work with, amazing nurses and respiratory therapists and physical. You'd be amazed at how many people it takes to help a single person who's that sick. We have a multidisciplinary team that rounds every morning, and it's usually 10 people deep. So it takes a lot of people's effort.
Yeah. Okay, so you have been on our show before, but it was a couple of months ago, and
right.
It's probably a different audience today. So let's just sort of review a little bit. What's your story? What's your bio? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? What's your
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about your history.
Tennessee, but I'm not a native Tennessean, which makes some people nervous. I actually grew up out in L.A., Lower Alabama.
Oh,
Alabama. People always get a little nervous.
Like Fairhope or Mobile?
I grew up in Mobile, Alabama.
Okay.
And moved up here 20 years ago to do my medical training. I had a chance to, after training at Vanderbilt, I worked at the VA Medical Center for a while, taking care of our veterans. I spent about almost 8 years working at Meharry Medical College, the nation's oldest historically black medical college. And as part of that, you work at Nashville General Hospital, which is the safety net hospital for Middle Tennessee. So I took care of folks with no insurance. I took care of the prisoners in the Tennessee Department of Corrections system. And I also had a chance to take care of our Metro employees and others as well. But that was a great opportunity. And in the last 4 years or so, 5 years, I've been up in Sumner County.
Okay. And where did you go to school? Where did you go to medical school?
So I went to medical school at the University of South Alabama down in Mobile, where I grew up, and that was a great experience. And I enjoyed being near my family, and eventually I came up to Vanderbilt for residency. But I was raised by hardworking parents in a working class neighborhood. Mom and Dad had a pretty rough start actually when we were coming up. I mean, Mom was 17 when she married Dad. Dad was 20. Mom went straight to work out of high school, answering phones at a dentist's office, and Dad was on the 6-year plan to get his 4-year degree because he was working for a living. So they were great examples. Hard work and faith and family. And then we grew up in a community that valued great public schools. I went to public schools, and all of that allowed me to have the chance to become a doctor. I'm grateful for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And now, don't you have 2 daughters?
I've got 3 girls.
3.
15,
Okay.
13, and 11. We got a birthday coming up next month, and so it'll be 15, 14, 11 next month. But
wow.
Yeah, they're amazing kids, and they're super happy to be out on the trail.
Really? Do they come with you to events?
Oh yeah, they do events like if they want to. We don't make them. But my 15-year-old and 13-year-old were marching out in Rutherford County last fall at the Women's March, and that was one of the things that I kind of got teared up about watching them. Was that my 15-year-old was like, I'm not old enough to vote yet, and yet my life is on the line. My future is on the line.
Yeah.
And I was like, gosh, she's really got a mature understanding of this. We have to do something to stand up against this terrible trigger law, and I'm proud that they found their voice.
Great. So I imagine if you were to become governor, you would do something about that trigger law, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I absolutely think that the government has no business. That big government, the heavy-handed government, has no business in that very private medical decision. Period. And look, Governor Lee and the supermajority are so radical on this issue. It's gonna take the lives of women. It is, because right now there is no exception for and I don't know, there may be children listening, so I'm going to use, there's no exception for the life and safety of a mother or the victim of violence. You know what I'm talking about. There's no exception for those things, and that is absolutely unbelievable to me that we in 2022 that we're having to fight this battle again. I mean, I've got older folks who've come up to me and tearfully, and they said, "We've already fought for this. Why are we doing this again?"
Right. It's a really weird unintended consequence of these draconian abortion laws is that I have a niece and nephew who are ready to have children. They're finally are both done with school. They've bought a house. They're ready to have kids now, and they don't want to get pregnant until all this is sorted out, because she is afraid that if anything were wrong with the pregnancy, that the doctors would be afraid to intervene or do what's necessary to save her life. And so they are literally putting off having children because of these abortion laws.
Yeah, people are making those kind of life-changing decisions. We've got physicians who are under threat for felonies, for providing life-saving care, and I'm talking about even in the case of like an ectopic pregnancy. I mean, the consequences of this law are wide-ranging. Can you imagine trying to recruit physicians to come to Tennessee to practice OBGYN, a state where 1/3 of our counties already doesn't have one in place?
Right.
Can you imagine being a residency training program to try to bring in quality doctors to train in this state? Look, we absolutely have to go to the voting booth this November. This election is not the midterms. This is the referendum on women's health freedom. And if we don't get out and vote, it's not going to change.
Yep. And, I would wager that you may not think you know a woman who has had to do this, but I will bet you that you do. It's way more common than you think. What are your thoughts? So you had mentioned that you worked for a hospital that took in uninsured people.
That's right.
What are your thoughts on Medicaid expansion in Tennessee?
So
the lack of Medicaid expansion in Tennessee.
About, and I'll take a minute to explain why. I mean, as part of taking care of folks who didn't have insurance, I want to let you know that could be any of us if we have some bad circumstances in our life. I'm talking about the people that I was taking care of without insurance. These are not people who are just sitting at the house. These are people working 2 and 3 jobs, working poor, who can't afford medical insurance on their own, but maybe they make slightly, too much to be able to get Medicaid assistance the way it is now.
Yep.
So with expanded Medicaid, what we do is we'll be able to take $1 billion a year that the federal government is trying to get back to us, and we can give health insurance to more than 400,000 Tennesseans. We can make it available to them. That would decrease our uninsured by half. That money is going to come back into our communities and allow us to have hospitals. Like right now, we lead the nation in medical bankruptcies per capita. We lead the nation in hospital closures per capita. It doesn't have to be that way. We're breaking our families. We're breaking our communities. And it's all because they're too pig-headed. I'm sorry, excuse me. But they are, really, they can't see with their heart that it's the right thing to do to take care of people. And that
or their brain, because economically it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I tell people all the time, even if you can't do it with your heart to take care of your brothers and sisters, just be greedy and think about it with your pocketbook, because if you've got people healthy enough to go out there and work, that's a good thing. If you've got a community with a hospital, that's part of the recipe for a business to want to come to your town. So we have to make that work. And 37 other states have done it, you all. It's not a mystery as to what happens. Racial disparities in healthcare delivery go down. Lack of access in rural communities goes down. Opioid deaths goes down. I mean, uninsured people goes up. I mean, it's silly that we haven't done it.
Right. There are states neighboring Tennessee that have expanded it, like Virginia, Kentucky, Arkansas. Have you seen or noticed like big differences between their outcomes and ours since they have expanded Medicaid?
Yes, and like I said, listed some of those off for you, but like if you look at the experience of the states that have done it, including some really deep red states, they have improved access to health care, and that benefits communities like in many different ways. Not only are people healthier, but it's an economic boost. It's an economic boost, and so it's silly that we haven't. I think it's silly that we haven't made it happen, and it's just another example of our current administration willing to play politics with people's lives, and not think twice about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they believe the government shouldn't do anything, but then they're all perfectly fine if they're bailing out corporations or getting involved in your personal life and your medical decisions. Yeah,
telling you what to do with your body, overriding your local school board, overriding your local, city council or county commission when they don't like something that you do.
Right.
They are the party of big government. They are the party of control. And I don't think that's the way majority of Tennesseans see the world.
Right. So you had mentioned that you are a product of public schools. What do you feel about Bill Lee and his obsession almost with diverting public school money into private religious schools and vouchers?
Yeah, Governor Bill Lee has waged a war on public education his entire time in office, whether it's politicizing our school boards, so making our school boards Republican or Democrat. That's all about power and control. That's nothing about helping our kids. Whether it's pushing voucher programs on Shelby County and Davidson County to try to punish them just to defund those counties. Those are weapons to defund public education. Whether it's having his buddy Larry Arnn come to town, who said that our teachers went to the dumbest parts of the dumbest colleges in the country, and that he was silent as those comments were made. People laughed and mocked our school teachers. Whether it's, having teachers spend their weekends cataloging their classroom libraries so that no one's feelings are hurt. Libraries they probably paid for with their own money because they're doing the best they can to take care of our kids. It cannot stand, you all. Public schools are how we lift our communities up. It's how we give our kids a chance. And we've strangled our public school system with a lack of funding for years and years. And now he's trying to blame the teachers. It cannot stand, guys.
No. And who would want to become a teacher now in a public school with all that scrutiny, with all that, reliance on testing? It's having to run everything you teach your class before Big Brother, before you can teach it, just having no autonomy in the classroom. That's right.
And we have that's why we have thousands of open teacher positions, because they don't feel valued, they don't feel respected, they don't feel cut free to do what they are experts at doing, and that's teaching. I mean, for him to sit up there and be silent, as someone said, anybody can be a teacher. I tell you what, I would challenge the governor to go spend an hour in a classroom, and I bet he would feel that way. We begged him to come spend an hour with us in the ICU during COVID, and he wouldn't do it. So I bet he wouldn't have the courage to do that either. I mean, shoot, he doesn't even have the courage to have a conversation with me on a stage. So. Oh,
he won't debate you?
He is not. He is not. Will not debate us. Now we have asked, and I'll ask again here publicly, Governor Lee, let's come to the table and have a respectful discussion about these issues.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's when you really starkly put them side by side, they know that it's not gonna look too good on their part. Can you think of anything that Governor Lee has done that has made life better for ordinary Tennesseans?
There was a piece of legislation that he passed that made it easier to track where campaign dollars were coming from.
Oh, that's good.
And I look, I'm all about transparency and campaign funding, and so I thought that was something that was positive that he's done. And look, my problems with Governor Lee are not with him personally. My problems are with his policies, which I think are terribly detrimental to our state. And so, I want to try to keep the campaign issue oriented.
Right. Definitely, you don't want to. You definitely want to go. I'm sure he is a perfectly good person, but he's just, I don't think he's thinking things all the way through, because
Right.
our hospitals, well, what he is doing to healthcare and education in this county is, not in this county, in this state, is just criminal. It really is. It's just criminal. And I'm sure if we were to elect you, you would expand Medicaid on day one, so that people who actually go and work jobs, not people who sit at home on their butts all day, but people who actually go out and work jobs, but their jobs don't offer health insurance, would have it. We have our next caller calling in, so and that's Wayne Steele, who's running for U.S. Congress. But before you go, is there anything that I didn't bring up that is important to you in your campaign?
Just really briefly, and I want to mention this. I think we need to legalize cannabis in the state of Tennessee, and I know that's a controversial issue.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to take just 1 minute to explain why I feel that way, if that's all right.
Sure.
From a
Take
medical
all the
standpoint,
time you need.
I know there are medical conditions where it's the right thing to do to offer that medicine to people. There's peer-reviewed data. I'm a scientist by nature and by training, and I think that it's a shame that we can't offer that medicine to cancer patients or PTSD or people with severe anxiety. The other thing I think we should do is legalize it fully. And let's think about Colorado. It's a state with 1.5 million fewer people than we have here in Tennessee. They're producing a safe and regulated product that doesn't have fentanyl in it, a product where they've taken the market and stolen it from the cartels, and they're making over $400 million a year in tax money. And I think that that's something we should do here in Tennessee for those reasons. There's also a social justice angle to it. We shouldn't be locking up primarily black and brown Tennesseans for small drug offenses. And for goodness sakes, let's give our farmers a crop where they can keep the family farm instead of paying them not to grow tobacco. So I appreciate you hearing me out on that. And it was after I looked at the data and all the information and all the potential that I came to this conclusion. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it just scares me to death to think of buying that kids or young people buy pot from people who they just don't even know, and you don't know what could be in it. Whereas you could just, like in Colorado, just go to a dispensary and you know that it's safe, you know that it's regulated, taxed, all that. Yeah, I think that is a win-win-win. Maybe the only person who loses is the person who gets stoned too much, but that they might hope they may be drinking instead. And to me, it's probably no worse than drinking. So
and so look, that's I know it's like I said, a controversial issue, but that's where I stand on it, and I think we should have a conversation about it.
Definitely. Well, thank you. I think that is a winning platform. Legalize marijuana, protect our public schools, and get health care to more people. That just...
Common sense and compassion.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I had a sign for you in my yard, and it got stolen.
Well, that's how you know we're making a difference.
Right. So if you've got more, please send them our way to Franklin County. And in fact, there's a woman in my community, Linda Weaver, and she said her husband worked in the hospital with you, and she just had nothing but the most wonderful things to say about you. So if you can get some signs to her, I will make sure they get out in our community.
Well, I appreciate you so much for having me on
Maybe out in
today.
front of WCDT.
Look forward to our next chat.
All right. So Ricky here's saying we can put one out in front of WCDT, the radio station we're calling at right now.
All right. We'll make it happen.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, y'all. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Oh,
He's on.
okay. Hi, is this Wayne?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. All right, so we
Good morning.
just finished speaking to Jason Martin, who's running for Tennessee governor. And now we are going to spend the rest of the show talking to Wayne Steele, who is running for U.S. Representative District 4. So that's the seat currently held by Scott Desjardins. It was Lincoln Davis. Who was after Lincoln Davis? Did it go straight from Davis to Desjardins?
It did.
Yes.
Okay, all right, yeah. So Desjardins has held the seat for many, many years, and you would like to shake that up, huh? So tell us your
12 years is long enough.
12 years is definitely long enough, and I bet you he's for term limits too.
I am, you said?
No, I'm saying I'll bet you that Desjardins says he's for term limits,
right.
but then he's held the
Sure.
seat for.
I've never heard that out of his mouth.
Okay, well,
Or as a policy.
I believe it or not, I am not for term limits, because I do think you gain experience the longer you're there, and you might get more corrupted the longer you're there. But honestly, the way that our country's system is, where everything is all based on money and you have to fundraise, everybody is going to get corrupted in their first or second term, because they are constantly having to fundraise, and
That's why we need
I would like for that to
private
change.
money out of elections.
Get money out of elections. I think that would just fix so much. But anyway, before we get into the issues, tell us your story. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? Your family, your career? Just let us know a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up, born and raised in Fayetteville, Tennessee. Mom's side is from Lincoln County. Dad's side is from Franklin County. So Franklin County is kind of second home to me.
Where in Franklin County?
You say where in Franklin County?
Yeah. Do you live in Winchester, or?
No, I live in Fayetteville.
No, your daddy. Did he?
My dad, he grew up in Elora, Huntland area.
Oh, okay.
East Springs Mountain.
Right.
Yeah. My mom's side's from Lincoln County. My dad's side's mainly from East Springs Mountain. I grew up in Lincoln County schools, public schools, and then about 15 years ago or so, I finished massage therapy school. I moved on to get an associate's in psychology and a bachelor's in alternative medicine, and now I am working to finish a master's in public health administration.
Oh, wow.
So public health is a huge driver in the reason that I decided to run.
Well, so speaking of alternative medicine, what are your thoughts on legalizing marijuana?
Well, from a federal level, because
you would be. You would not be state.
I have a state level opinion, but that really wouldn't apply to how we would legislate in Washington. What I'm for is mandatory medical cannabis across the board, required in all 50 states and all the territories, and then leave recreational use up to the state's rights. If the state decides to, after dipping their toe in the medical cannabis area and seeing how much sales tax they're really going to benefit from it, then they could decide on their own. But the federal tax that I would put forward for legislation would be 3% to pay down the debt. That's a huge thing that I think that progressive Democrats don't talk about. I'm more of a moderate, and leaving us with $30 trillion in debt, and now the leadership are getting old enough. They've been there 40 years, 50 years, and they think they've written the tax code where they're not gonna be left holding the bag. They're gonna leave it with us. We have to figure out a way to pay it down. And I am for a balanced budget amendment. If you or I had $30 trillion in debt and we tried to go to the bank and get some money, and we actually took in less revenue than what we were spending, then we would be turned down for a loan. It's just common sense.
Well, the recent Inflation Reduction Act will go pretty far towards paying down the deficit.
Right. I did see that. I didn't see which mechanisms will help that. But
Well, it's saying that, people like Jeff Bezos who don't pay any taxes will be subject to them finally, and like that no one's going to be able to get off hugely profitable corporations will no longer be able to get away with paying zero in taxes anymore. That's part of
Right.
it. There are
15% corporate tax.
yeah, and there's several things that are in there that are designed to pay down the deficit. What made you decide to run for office? What was the issue that kind of spurred you to run?
Just seeing the amount of inequity that is being perpetrated really by the Republican Party. Desjardins just votes against, or, he votes against whatever the Democrats are for, essentially.
Well, you know what? Speaking of that, I think Biden and them just announced this moonshot for curing cancer. And so it's like, in the 60s when we had that big push to land a man on the moon, it was a big concerted effort, and Biden announced that they're going to try to start a big concerted effort to cure cancer. So like, who on earth could be against that? But believe it or not, there are Republicans who are actually against trying to cure cancer. It's like, yeah, if a Democrat says it, they will just reflexively and automatically be against it.
Well, right, exactly. And he had cancer one year. He didn't, which he doesn't campaign in general. He just sends out mailers, and you don't really hear from him. But during one of his campaign years, he had cancer.
Right, I remember that.
But he's sitting there with, federal insurance that's going to pay great, whereas, if you don't have insurance at all, then you need to go to Vanderbilt or St. Thomas or somewhere like that. They can pay your bill with charity.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. So I know you would be doing things at the federal level, but can you think of things that you would do to help our public schools if you were elected in Congress?
The main thing is when it comes down to using public education money for vouchers to go to a charter school or private school, I would propose legislation at a federal level that federal funding for public schools be barred from charter school use. Now, if a state wanted to set up a program, either through taxes or some other revenue, where they funded it themselves, then that's on the state's rights issue. But federal money for education should not be taken away from local schools and local initiatives like that.
I totally agree. Okay, if you were elected, what is the first thing you would do? What would be the first piece of legislation you would want to get passed?
Well, it would actually not even be legislation. It would be a constitutional amendment reintroducing the Equal Rights Amendment.
Which has never passed, right?
Well, it passed. It almost made it to the 37 state requirement. It passed the House, passed the Senate. The president signed it, and then I think it's 35 states ratified it, which I know they went through some type of. They set a limit on it, which I don't agree with setting a time limit on when a constitutional amendment has to be passed, or when states have to ratify it.
Well, how would passing the Equal Rights Amendment, how would that affect normal people's lives?
Well, as it was written, now I would expand upon it, and I can get to that in a second, but women aren't paid equally, and they aren't treated equally in the workplace. And we can expand that to, it's also true with housing, it's also true with education. Where I would expand it would be women's health care, for that matter, men's health care. Everybody having privacy in the private decisions they make about their lives, who they're married to, whether that be someone of a different race or someone of the same gender or gender identity.
Yeah, I cannot believe Clarence Thomas saying he wants to, get rid of marriage equality, because his very own marriage was illegal back in the 1960s.
Well,
blacks and whites
he
couldn't
says it
marry.
for same-sex marriage, but he doesn't say it for mixed-race marriage.
Right, I know. So it's just
Yeah.
So it's just pretty hypocritical. Like, his marriage would have been illegal, 50 years ago, but he wants to make gay marriages illegal. And I remember when that first passed, everybody thought, oh, the sky is falling, everything's gonna, nope. It just means more people get to get married. Okay.
Well, and privacy for contraception, that's another thing he named going after. And if we're going to attack all of these civil liberties that have been decided by Supreme Court cases, then how far are we going to go back? Are we going to go back to resegregating schools? Because that was decided by the Supreme Court as well. And in my book, we're lucky to have the 19th Amendment, because if that were decided by the Supreme Court, then what would be happening with that? How far, we could go even further back. And as it stands right now, women in some states that they come after for having a necessary abortion, if you arrest a woman and then give her a felony, then you can supersede or get around the 19th Amendment. She loses the right to vote. So where are we going to stop at controlling people's private lives? I mean, do any of the listeners want the government telling them what religion that they can be, such as just Christianity? That's where this Christian nationalist thing comes into play, that people don't quite understand. That we forget that we broke off from England because of the Church of England. We were forced to be the Church of England. You couldn't be any other religion. And we came over here to get away from that. And so we talk about the meticulousness of the way the Constitution was written and specific words that were in it. And Marsha Blackburn gave that example, that is the word abortion in the Constitution? And of course the word is no. Well, neither is the word marriage. So are we also saying that heterosexuals don't have a right to marry?
Yeah.
So if you look at the time period it was written as well, like I said, we broke off from the Church of England because we wanted to have, or to be able to worship the way we wanted to, or not worship. And furthermore, the previous 100 years before the Constitution, we had the Salem witch trials. So if we were purposefully going to say that we're a Christian nation, then how can we not go further and say, well, the word Christian and the word Bible is not in the Constitution? Just like the word marriage and the word abortion are not. So I don't think people realize that, we just don't need the government telling us or interpreting the Constitution and interpreting the laws based upon a religion. Because that's what Sharia law is, and a lot of people are against that, obviously. So I digress.
All right. Can you name anything that Scott Desjardins has done that benefits our district?
I was thinking about this, and he actually did vote for the burn pit cancer and the issue with burn pit with the military.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
the health care for them.
Right. Veterans who got cancer from burn pits will the VA will be able to cover their care. Okay.
Right.
So in 12 years,
And that was just recently. Yeah, he's just a yes man for the Republican side, and if 99% of the time if the Democrats are for it, then he's against it. And I just won't be that type of congressman. I'll do what's best for the constituency of my district, and generally as an American as a whole. But yeah, I won't be a yes man for the Democratic Party.
You're just going to be an independent thinker.
Well, in a way, but I mean, obviously, there's one side that I agree with more than the other, or I wouldn't be here.
Sure.
But
all right. Well, is there anything else, any other issue that's really important to you before we go?
Let's see. Covered school teachers. I would just say that when it comes to getting out to vote, you really have to think about the future and what you want for your children and grandchildren and their health. And I know that we have a lot of Republicans who just wouldn't think about voting for a Democrat. But there are a lot of silent Republicans who are women or independents who lean Republican, who feel very uncomfortable with the Dobbs decision, and for that matter, public education.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just not saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's not...
Yeah, I just cannot get over people who are just too afraid to speak out against their party. I mean, January 6th was a coup attempt, and they're just acting like
Right.
that is okay. And all the things that Trump has done, like with all these documents being held at his house. Like, imagine if Hillary Clinton had done that. It would be the end of the world. And there is
she'd already be
literally
under the prison.
Oh, she'd be in jail. Lock her up. I mean, yeah, it is scary how afraid they're afraid to say that he didn't win the election. They are just scared to death. And it's like it's pitiful just how afraid they are to say the emperor is wearing no clothes. Like they will just go along with anything. And yeah, I do think we need independent voices out there, and I'm glad that you will be one and who can acknowledge reality.
Right. Exactly.
You know, Joe Biden won the election by bigger margins than George W. Bush won the election both times. And, you know, they just will, you get politicians on TV, they will not say it. They just will not say it. You ask them for proof of fraud, they cannot show it, you know?
Well, and that goes back to, you know, say I win Congress this time, and I'm sworn in at the beginning of January, on January 3rd, I think it is, of 2023, then that means that, well, I'd have to win the next election as well. But in any case, if I were there and Joe Biden and Trump, we were doing this all again in 2024, and Trump, there's no fraud, and he won the Electoral College, then I would have to vote to certify every state. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that would be ethically what should happen.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Well, yes, we need people who are willing to speak the truth and acknowledge reality, and I'm not seeing a whole lot of that going on. Well,
I agree.
Thank you so much for being with us, and I just have I'm just going to make a few more announcements, and then we will be off the air. But thank you, Wayne, and you have a great day.
Mm-hmm. You too.
All right.
Thank you.
So just again, I wanted to make just a few announcements before we go. So remember that the last day to register to vote is October 11th. This is going to be an important election. It's really important that you get out there. the Franklin County Democratic Party's next meeting is going to be October 20th at 6 o'clock at the Annex, 839 Dinah Shore Boulevard. When you do vote, we're hoping that people will vote no on Amendment 1, which is an anti-union bill, and yes on 3, which is outlawing slavery in all circumstances. I know, of course, we don't have slavery anymore, but there are circumstances where, prisoners and other people can be made to work against their will, and so this is just saying that we outlaw slavery in all conditions. When it is time to vote, when does early voting start? We're still a ways from that. Anyway, please try and vote early. That is the best way to do it. And if you want to learn more about the Franklin County Democratic Party, our website is FranklinCountyTennesseeDemocraticParty.com. It's long. FranklinCountyTennesseeDemocraticParty.com, and there you can find our upcoming events. You can get the addresses of all your elected officials, so if you want to write to them about an issue that's important to you. We're also on Instagram under FCTN Democratic Party, FCTN Democratic Party on Instagram. And then we're also on Facebook, Franklin County TN Democratic Party. So please try and follow us on any of those things and come show up at a meeting. And people are always saying to me, why isn't the Democratic Party doing this and why aren't they doing that? And I always say, then if you want that to happen, join and, lead it up, because we're all busy people with jobs and families, and there's so much we would like to do, but it's just a matter of time. So if we have volunteers with energy and if there's something that's important to you to head up, please come and do that. All right. Thank you so much, Ricky.
All right, thank you.
All right.